happening around the council departments and some of the, importantly, some of the things that are coming up. So we're going straight into the assets group update. So hand over to Mr. Rendell.
Thank you very much. Happy to take the report as read, just for the sake of timeliness, and answer any questions.
Okay, so if we could just go straight to questions. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, Josh, thanks for this report. It's very helpful and covers a lot of areas. On the first page, the reference to the property activity, community housing, you say the annual community housing survey is about to start. Again, I'm just curious to know, was that last time it was done, it was self-selecting, which I think to some extent compromises the confidence we can have in this outcomes. Was it self-selecting again this time?
Just to clarify, by self-selecting, are you saying voluntary?
Yes. In other words, rather than randomly choosing people on a demographically representative basis, my understanding is that the survey previously was of people who said they wished to take part. In other words, they initiated the engagement.
So you're talking about two different things here, Councillor. One is a survey of the residents of community housing, and the other was a survey in relation to the housing strategy.
Right. Yes, thank you, Paul.
Thank you for that. So as we work through the assets group, any other questions? Give it to you, Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Miketch, I do have a number on the next page 7. Where have these elevated lead levels on Holmes Wharf come from, and why are they delaying the reticulation of services by 3 to 6 months, please?
As far as the source of the elevated lead levels, I can't particularly tell you why there's higher lead levels there. It is in the mole section of the wharf. That area was filled from the quarry that is over by the penguin colony, which happens to also have elevated lead levels within the material at the quarry. So it could be that it's a naturally occurring phenomenon as far as lead levels within that particular material, and it was just carted there and placed there, and as such it's now testing as being high. It also could be due to contamination from industrial involvement over the previous years. As far as the delay, because of the elevated lead levels, we now need to go and get a consent and put in a management plan to ensure that we're abiding by all of the required conditions in Target Regional Council. Those consents take time, hence the delay.
Thank you. Councillor Holding.
I don't want to jump too many pages if you're trying to get, but page 10, just about the pavement rehabilitation program. How are we prioritising some of those? I just see those couple of roads, Fishy Keep Road, Horse Range Road. I would imagine there's pavements out there.
Prioritisation of the pavements is generally done through a fairly complex process. The amount of maintenance that's required on the road and the amount of pothole formation, the amount of deformation on the road, then lends itself to essentially giving the pavement itself a condition score. Those condition scores are then looked at along the road length to determine whether a heavy intervention such as a pavement rehabilitation is more appropriate than a smaller intervention, just where you essentially do a minor mill and fill, or you do a dig and fill. So there's a bit of a criteria that comes to it, and a cost benefit analysis done on when it's most appropriate to do a pavement rehabilitation versus another intervention method. Does that answer your question?
So pavement as in sealed road surface.
Yeah, as in, so when we're talking about the pavement, we're talking about not the real the seal itself, but the underlying pavement, gravel, etc., the stuff that carries the load. Yep.
Councillor McCone.
Just comment, this is extensive and thank you for the work gone here, but could you expand a bit on the strategic property team and what their aim of assessments is? Is this lining stuff up for sale, or is it identifying paper roads, or just what are they involved with?
Yes, refer to what page? Can you say what page you're referring to? Okay, thank you.
So the property team have been working on the implementation plan that council agreed when it adopted the property strategy. So it isn't just a matter of looking at what land is or what we might be able to dispose of and sell, but how we can get better use of some of our facilities, how we can be a bit more efficient in the running of some of our facilities, and how we can minimise some of our operational costs moving forward. So it's a mix of things, and it isn't just about selling properties. Yeah. So they're just going through the process that was outlined within the property strategy that they would do, which they hadn't been able to for a little while, but they're getting onto it now. But that's all of the ones within the property strategy. Yes. Yep. So reserves was outside of scope for the property strategy, but everything else was included.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions on page 9. First of all, the Oamaru Public Gardens upon clearing. I know that Councillor McCone some months ago, when this was first proposed or discussed, queried what seemed to be a very substantial cost. So what is going to be the cost of that pond clearing now? Because I think the staff were going to, on the basis of his concerns, we're going to actually look at some cheaper options. And also on that page, second to last bullet point, the installation of a new toilet at the Mairaki Boulder car park will occur following council approval to proceed. The only matter I remember at the August 27 meeting was whether we spent $30,000 upgrading that toilet, and we voted no to that. I don't recall us actually voting to proceed with any toilet at all. So is that statement at the bottom of that page correct, please?
The first question with respect to the ponds in the gardens, the preferred methodology has been identified essentially to try to cope with the removal of the sedimentation that's within the ponds. The issue here has been that the team have been trying to remain within budget and trying to come up with some creative solutions to do so. The actual cost to remove all of the sediment and sludge that was within the ponds was significantly greater than what we had budget for. Hence the, I suppose, time taken to identify a solution that would fit within the budget. What the actual budget number is, I can't tell you right now because it's not in front of me. But they are trying to work to the budget and still get the same outcome. So that's why the time is taken, and that's the second question with respect to the Mairaki Boulders public toilet. Yeah, sorry, that statement in there might be a little bit misleading. Essentially, we were waiting on council's direction as to whether it wanted to contribute those additional $30,000 towards the flushing toilets or not. And obviously, council made a decision, and now we'll progress with the option that doesn't include that particular upgrade.
So we had previously approved the toilet, but it was just that it was come back to us as the flushing option. Eric, you may want to make a comment there.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kuchar. Just to add to Josh's comments, the budget for the Oamaru Public Gardens ponds was $300,000. And just an update with regard to the Mairaki Boulders toilets, Te Ringa or Mairaki have applied to MB for some additional funding to support that project, and we're just waiting to hear the response at the moment. If we are getting additional funding from MB, we would be proceeding with the flushing option. Otherwise, we would continue with the non-flushing option.
Thank you, Eric. And Lindsay.
Good morning, all. Just further to the public gardens ponds, the team is there was a volume of material identified that needed to be removed. So the team is actually seeing if we are able to I guess, relocate the material within public gardens and so enhance the areas around the ponds. Maybe it's filling in some voids, some holes. So we're just doing some identifying some areas at the moment, and that will give us an understanding of whether we're going to be whether it's going to be viable for this project to move ahead, because we need to determine what the volumes are that we'll be able to remove out of the pond and whether the outcome will be successful. So whether we're going to achieve something that's reasonable. If the numbers don't stack up, then we will look at probably retiring that project, but we just need to do the numbers in the first instance anyway.
Thank you for that. Councillor McConey, you want to comment on that? And then Councillor Ryan, up to you.
Yeah, I think people know my view on the pond, so we won't go there. But the risk and opportunities, I see significant project fund has been turned out again. Is there a plan B for the 600K that we're not going to get?
Josh.
Eric, would you like to cover that one?
Yes, certainly. I'm working with the fundraising trust at the moment to get an updated fund plan. The fund is not open this year. We're still hopeful it will open next year within the term of the project as we're completing it. But yeah, still working with the trust to update the plan for fundraising.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. Just on page 11, talking about the risk around the Beach Road reinstatement. Is there any update since this report was written, just I guess with work underway and what's been discovered in that space?
No, not as yet. No, they're still working through it and working. And I suppose as they're removing material and understanding what the volumes are, we'll know more. But there isn't any further update from this report. Right.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, couple of questions on page 12.
Microphone.
So a couple of questions on page 12. Can you give us a bit more? South Roads has resolved, this is under monitoring the maintenance contract. South Roads has resolved 165 urgent and routine water-related customer requests and 8 urgent sewer-related requests. I mean, on the face of it, that seems a bit alarming. So is it possible to give us more information about that? And also at the bottom of the page is a reference to the work progressing on the upgrade of the Lake Ohau water supply. I do wonder whether it might be is an option to push the pause button on that until we get clarity from Te Mata Arawai on the extent to which they will allow point of receipt solutions to some of those smaller schemes.
Yeah, I can respond to those questions. First one regarding the customer requests, that's quite normal. It's just to put it into perspective as to how many we get. That was to about the middle of August. So we get about, I think it's about 2,000 a year CRMs in the water space. And regarding the Lake Ohau water treatment plant, the Te Mata Arawai have openly said at a council meeting, not one of ours, but with another council, that point of entry devices likely to be effective up to about 20 households. Ohau has 160 sections, so it would never be cost effective to do point of entry at Ohau.
Just possibly the update. Some of us had a meeting with Alan Prangnell, CE of Te Mata Arawai, during the local government conference, and he was quite. We actually raised Lake Ohau as one of the opportunities, and he was certainly quite positive about the ability to have that point of entry treatment, and it was on the basis that councils would be responsible for getting water to the gate, essentially, and that owners would be responsible. He was to be sending out formal indication of that, but I'll chase him up on that, because the sooner we know that, there's quite a number of houses have already got the treatment units, and if that becomes not our responsibility, then changes it to really just an issue around to make sure there's enough storage for times when the water might have high turbidity, and we just need enough storage for that. So I'll get in touch with him and just see whether he's still of that mind. And the sooner we know, the sooner hopefully we can find a cheaper solution. Mr. Conley.
Yeah, and I think, to confirm, we haven't had anything official changing the position. What we've still got is the requirement to implement by the end of this calendar year. And the reminder that Te Mata Arawai had Lako as one of its most risky schemes in the country due to the evidence of E. coli in there. That risk still sits with us, both in terms of the regulator, but in law as well.
So, what's the other one? Councillor McCain.
Yeah, could you expand please on the stock effluent disposal? Why have we got capacity issues out there now? And considering it's going to be the topic later on today, do we have a bit more information, please?
Yeah, so that's technically in the road area, but also bridges into the water area. Yeah, so we're not able to take stock effluent to the Oamaru wastewater treatment plant at the moment. There's some capacity issues there. Because of that, stock effluent is able to be treated at that site. We're looking at other options. At the moment, the next best option we have is probably to take it to Timaru, which obviously comes at a significant cost for us. The only other option is Dunedin. We don't have other sites that are able to take stock effluent. Where we have had stock effluent being picked up, we have had it tested, and it does look as though someone has been dumping material within the stock effluent facilities that is not stock effluent, high levels of fats and greases and oils. So because of that significant loading, and the wastewater treatment plant is able to cope up with it at the moment. One of the options that we are considering there is potentially closing one or both of them, and having discussions with the Otago Regional Council about the ongoing maintenance and cost of these, because at the moment, the cost of that bears to us as and our ratepayers. We're trying to work out where it should best sit.
Is there any ability to put some surveillance on there, CCTV? Some sort of camera?
Yes, yep, we could put some battery operated cameras on site. We could put in some sampling equipment, etc. It would then be a matter of understanding or someone reviewing footage whenever someone drops and hoping that we catch the culprit. It's an intermittent issue as opposed to a continuous issue.
Yeah.
It is something that we are very much looking at, but it still doesn't resolve the issue of even just it being effluent, the loading at the wastewater treatment plant. So I suppose it's not the first issue to target of all of the issues. So the effort hasn't gone into that yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McConaughey.
Yes, in response to that, it is stock effluent and they do it in the grass. So is there an option just to spread it back on the paddocks where it came from?
Probably not if there's other things that have gone into it. That's, I guess, one of the points being made.
Great question. We could work through a consent process to take the stock effluent from the stock effluent pit and then deposit it on the grass area somewhere. Because we currently have responsibility for disposing of it, we would have to take that process or undertake that process, which obviously does require work. As I said, at the moment, we're trying to work with OFC to come up with an amicable solution for all parties, as well as with NZTA, because essentially the stock effluent pits ensure that effluent doesn't spray onto the road itself. So it makes it far easier to clean up, but yeah, a bit of a process to go through.
Thank you. Just mindful we're getting on time, so if we can get through the last of the assets group update, that'll be good. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, Mayor Coach, I have three more questions. First is on page 13. I'm just curious to know if we can be told anything, I gather that Becca, with regard to coastal erosion, has had this initial meeting to look at criteria to assess management options. Is there anything we can be told about that at this stage, and or when is the second workshop likely to happen? My other two questions relate to the Sports and Events Centre, or the Waitaki Event Centre. Can somebody advise? I'm not aware that the 80,000, well, it does say here that cultural design will add 80,000. Are we going to have an opportunity to consider whether we, in straitened times, wish to spend that much additionally on the project? And the other question in relation to that, to the centre, the Otago Community Trust has advanced that the council needs to spend the current grant before reapplying. And the trust is requesting the inclusion of 2 million in next year's budget, which we're going to apply for in April. But the question is, are you confident that we can actually spend the current grant before reapplying? So those are my final three questions.
Yeah, I'll take those if you like.
Thanks, Eric.
So with regard to the coastal erosion report, we are expecting the draft report this Thursday. We will be circulating that through the councillors' reading room for your review and your comment, and also circulating that with the wider stakeholder group, including the Ministry of Education, Waka Kotahi, and Kirwell, and Ministry of Education. So we'll be circulating that draft report later this week, inviting any thoughts and comments back next week, so we can amend and refine that document by the end of September. With regard to the $80,000 for the cultural work for the event centre, that is something we have discussed previously with council when council awarded the contract. So council endorsed that work at the time. We did indicate the budget of $80,000 towards that. So we have been proceeding with the cultural design at the moment. It is likely we have surplus in our contingency fund. We won't know totally until we get out of the ground, but we're looking to manage that within the current budgets. As far as the Otago Community Trust, yes, we will be spending more than $2 million by the end of December, when we hope to do our accountability report to the Otago Community Trust, and that will enable us to apply for the second grant in April.
Thank you. Right, moving on from that.
Sorry,
yes.
point of order.
Sorry, Councillor Hopkins, we're moving on from that. We have got
I think we're
25
point
minutes.
of order. I've raised a
Councillor
point of order.
Councillor Hopkins.
I've raised a point of order.
Okay, please state your point of order.
Point of order is I'm not aware of, and I would like to see evidence that we voted to spend $80,000 on a cultural design for the event centre. We've certainly discussed the matter. A figure of $20,000 is what comes to my mind as being a possible cost. But at no stage, in my view, did we actually vote on the matter, and I would like to see evidence that we did.
Okay, well, we'll seek evidence of what discussions did happen from the CE, and they'll be provided in due course. We don't have time at the moment. We've got nearly a third of the way through, and we're not even through the first part of this report. We need to be done by 10:30. So I'm going to move on to the People and Transformation Group update. So if anyone's got any other questions on assets, please just address them straight to the CE, please. So People and Transformation Group update is on page 17. And we've got Chloe Searle and Lisa Bailey here. So who wants to? Chloe, if you'd like to start off, thanks very much.
Cool. I think in the interest of time, we'll just take the update from the People and Transformation Group as read and proceed with any questions.
Okay, straight to questions. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I have two very quickly. On page 20, there's a reference to the New Zealand Heart Foundation doing free blood pulse and blood pressure checks at the hospital. How many people take advantage of that, please? I think it would be helpful to know. And the other thing is very a light-hearted matter. Can you please explain the museum's working with Te Papa to host colossal squid freaky features? What on earth is that?
Right, Councillor Hopkins, I will need to check how many people take advantage of the healthy heart checks, but I do know it is a considerable number of people who, while they're waiting for something else, take advantage of that while it is available in the Oamaru Library. In terms of the second question regarding working with Te Papa, people may be aware that Te Papa has one of the most significant collections related to colossal squid. And they have the colossal squid on display at Te Papa in Wellington. People have in that collection item, and knowing that many New Zealanders can't travel to Wellington to Te Papa, they've developed a touring exhibition which includes some parts from a colossal squid as well as some interactive elements, and they've offered it to smaller museums, and it's touring to us over the Christmas holidays.
Thank you. Any other questions from the update? No, Councillor Holding.
Chair, just for Mr. Palmy, in this report, or actually in the report before as well, just about staff movements and resourcing. But as we move to a challenging long-term plan, is that warranting further assessment? So it might come in as a risk, or is it pretty minor?
Sorry, you're referring to staff movements as a result of transformation. Yeah, so we are in the middle of recruitment in transformation, so there will be staff movement happening as people are, well, first of all, appointed to roles, but then stand up. That'll be gradual over the coming months. We've got 4 phases of stand up, so there will be movement of people in roles. And inevitably that will have some impact in terms of business as usual service delivery. It is a risk we've identified through transformation. There'll be short-term disruption potentially as staff move to different roles and we get set up different ways of working to deliver in a very different way, which inevitably will have some impact as staff get used to that and start to those changes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks very much, Chloe. We'll now move through to the information technology, information systems and digital projects update. Teresa and Scott joining us for that. So that's from page 28. Right, floor is yours.
Sorry, following in Chloe's fine footsteps. Any questions?
Right, so taken as read. Any questions to Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, Teresa, thank you very much for the report. 31 and 32, the deployment of Council's main electronic document record management system, pretty fundamental scope. It says here this will move back to green as it is adopted. And then it's indicating that it's been re-scoped and is back to green, and yet there's various risks identified, including the fact that on the next page, the whole project is identified as being at risk. So I must say the colour coding doesn't quite correlate with it doesn't appear to correlate with the written information. So can you just give us a bit more certainty or confidence about that, please?
Certainly. So risk is always a part of any project, and the risks that are in there are risks that are of tolerance. So we're still tracking green.
So it's an important project, and it's not at this stage under threat or experiencing unexpected delays.
No. So this was the one just checking I've got the right, because there are two there. So this one is coming back on track because the previous project, which was the digitisation, we were waiting for the external vendor to come on board. We've got the RFP sorted. And so now these two projects are coming into a nice situation where they're running as per usual. So yeah, we've gone from that status we had of an amber status last activity update, and our resources are settling down and we're moving into the green.
Okay, any other questions, Councillor Ryan?
Thank you. I understand previously governance team used to get copies or alerts on Lagoima requests in terms of the topics and what was raised. Is that something that could be reintroduced or at all?
I'll hand over to Scott for this one as the Lagoima team leader.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, we did get a request and we did release a report to the councillors to consume. So I'll follow up and see where that got to. Sorry, can you receive that question?
Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you. It might also be just worth noting that a number of the Lagoimas are proactively released on our website as well. So not all of them, of course, but that's another place to go to look.
I think one of the issues has been there's been questions asked of us that we've been told not to respond to, and that the government is going to be taking care of it. We don't then see what response has been given. So, so a couple of things. One is I don't believe it's right to say that we shouldn't respond. We should be able to respond to questions that we are asked. But the other is that we do know what has been shared with the person who's asked us. Because we may have our own view on what we've said or what we've the intentions and so forth that I think adds some quality to whatever response might come from simply passing on emails or whatever it might be. So just that would be appreciated. Thank you. Anything else in there? Okay, thank you very much to the three of you. And we will move on to Finance and Corporate Development Group update on page 34. And Paul, and Amanda. She's over. Can see her there. And we've got Councillor Hopkins once again poised to ask.
That's their job, isn't it? Look, I just have two questions. First on page 35, forgive me if I should know this, but under rates, in addition, there have been an increased number of maintenance revaluation objections, which are now being finalised and processed. As expected, there's been a major increase in rating inquiries regarding the rates rise. But what are these maintenance revaluation objections? Is question number one. And on the next page, third paragraph, in the rollout of objectives and key results has been challenged by the change in the organisation. A tool has been selected, leaps, and the work done so far has been an input. Is it possible to get information on both of those questions, please?
So objections are a normal part of the revaluation process. So, when the revaluation undertaken by quotability takes place, there is a period of objections where people can make a formal objection to the revaluation. It then takes some time for QV to actually work through all of those, especially the more complicated ones. We tried to get as many of those finished by the 30th of June as possible, but not all of them were complete. So that means the adjustment actually rolls into the next rating year, and then we're actually required to adjust the rates based on the new valuation because the new valuation should have been in effect. So the idea is to not disadvantage the ratepayer, essentially from the length of time it's taken to complete the process.
So what's the difference between a maintenance revaluation and a revaluation objection?
All it means is that it's actually come through, and so we need to make the adjustment to the rating database.
And leaps and the OKRs?
going, where did Mrs. Bailey go? Because that's actually sits with her. I mean, it's just we've just selected basically an application to help manage the performance management process. So it's just a tool to record all of the performance management items in one place and then record against them.
Okay. Councillor McCone.
So just a question, so it's on page 34, it just states that the draft results show a $15 million deficit. Is that for the 12 months or is that continuing from the previous year or this? And what is our current account deficit right now?
Yes, that's for the full 12 months ended 30 June 24. There's a full report that went to the PAR committee meeting that's got all the variance explanations. I am not sure what the current account balance is right now. I have to check that for you.
I think it's important to note that a deficit in this case is, and has been explained here, is that there's just money we're expecting to come in for external funding for the event centre didn't happen. So we were budgeting for it to come in. The project wasn't that far advanced, so it hasn't come in. So it's it's not like a profit and loss type situation as far as that goes, but it's just moved forward a year into the next financial year where it will come in.
Just in all fairness, it looks as if the budget was pretty close to the actual end result without, if you remove the 15 million that was expected.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Councillor Holding, sorry. Yeah.
Just in regards to on page 38, on Monday, 2nd of September, there was a youth survey. I know we all got an invite from Mr. Everett. I was out of town, couldn't make it. Have those results been shared?
Yes. I think Councillor Ryan did send them out. Did you? No, okay. I know I've had them twice. So yeah, it's been released, but yeah, we'll make sure that they get sent to all the councillors. Councillor McCone, something else?
I just comment on the comprehensive report, so it's easy to follow, and thank you for that. The faith that's given to this new is it going to solve a few problems that we've had in the past as far as picking up budgets and deficits and everything else and sort that through the system?
Yeah, I'm quite excited about it. It has the potential to, I think just the transparency across the organisation, everyone can see their budgets a bit easier. We're going to build up dashboards that'll be user friendly and they can vary between departments and things like that as well. So I think it should be quite good. And when we bring it up here, when we make decisions, we can untick projects or change the funding, anything we want, and it flows through to shows the impact on the financials and those graphs that I always show about the financial sustainability and things. So I think it'll be a really useful tool. It's a work in progress. It's going to be a messy year. There's a lot of change. Like we're completely changing the codes, like the whole org structure. We need to change from the old department setup to the new department setup. So it's not going to be a very clean year, but we'll get through it. And yeah, I think it has potential to be really good.
Excellent. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Anything else? Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Right, next we have health and safety. I've got Bill Nelson joining us for that one. So that's on page 39. And welcome, Bill. Do you want to say anything as an intro or? Just put your microphone on, please. Yeah. Let's go. Sorry, didn't go on the right hand side. That's it. That's right.
Sorry. This report, the health and safety update is to the end of July. So just to give some perspective, I'm suggesting you take the report
as read, and I invite any questions.
Just an initial question. Obviously, there's a lot of change happening around the organisation, and you've got your health and safety committee, and so forth. Are you comfortable with, that the committee is still able to operate well and do its job, as you may have personnel changing in and out of different roles?
It is a time period of extreme change, which creates extreme pressures, which are being managed. The focus for the Health and Safety Committee has certainly been on welfare of staff as they go through the process. So every meeting, we're actually discussing that as the main event. Such that the last meeting, there were suggestions of further support, potentially that could be offered to staff. And so I summarise those to our exec team rep on the committee for them to consider, and that's mentioned in the report.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mick. It's one from me, Bill. You say that the report's to the end of July, and I do notice at the bottom of page 31, there's one instance not involving the pool staff where problems, tensions and abuse do appear to be slightly more common. But there is a reference to an abuse incident involving other staff, and that's one incident in the month. So is that serious? That's on page 41, bottom of page 41. There's a reference to year to date. At the very bottom, abuse, other staff, one instance. So in the 1 month you said that this report relates to, there's been an issue of an instance of abuse. And I'm just curious to know, since it involved other staff, how substantial was it and where was it?
We've got processes in place to deal with bullying, harassment, discrimination. The HR department take the person through that and involve the group managers as required.
But the abuse, was it something that did some member of the public, a visitor, a resident, abuse a staff member, or was it an internal matter?
I'm sorry, I actually took some notes for this. There was a call from overseas to our animal control officer with a very distressed puppy in the background and making threats about doing harm to that puppy. So there was a debrief after the call. We're one of about 7 councils that were approached in this manner by the individual. The police are aware and are following through to the best of their ability.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? Okay, thanks very much, Phil. Appreciate that and keep up your good work. Right, next we move on to the ever important Heritage Environment and Regulatory Group update, and welcome Mr. Cook to make any introduction to this one that you might wish to.
Thank you very much. Yes, the Heritage Environment Regulatory Report presented there. As you'll see, building consents are continuing to trend downwards, which is a little bit concerning. Trade sources are reporting that there is a slowdown in new work coming forward. But also there's been an increase in exemptions that are now allowed under the Building Act. And so that has contributed probably to some of those. The district plan review, I think everybody knows where that is, so we won't linger too long on that. The dog policy and bylaw, we've completed the hearings and deliberations, and officers are now in the process of turning that into new policy, which will be presented to council in a month or so's time. By the end of the last financial year, we'd registered 5,409 dogs and just 180 to follow up, which is better than previous years. Project Reclaim, as you'll see, is doing well. Hampden has just about been completed. Beach Road is well underway. We've received our first invoice for the $1.8 million of waste levy. We expect another one to come soon. They're both in dispute until MFE consider our application for levy exemption. MFE have come to the party and extended the funding bond on the curbside collection business case. So we've got more time to work through that, which allows us to come back to council with a further short briefing before we bring you the decision document. We've had some great engagement in the community across a range of subjects, including dog safety and waste minimisation. And in the CDAM space, we're preparing for our annual exercise and undertaking some joint work with ECAN and ORC and the neighbouring territorial authorities on how to handle, manage and communicate weather events in the Waitaki catchment, because of course that covers 2 regions. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Just a wee bit further to this civil defence and emergency management. We had our joint committee meeting on Thursday last week, and there was a very good presentation. I'm not sure that we've got all the slides from that, but if we don't, we'll get them. But it was just to share with councillors. Yeah, very good indication of what's expected to happen when the Alpine Fault does go at some stage, and the different scenarios of what the impact will be. So, yeah, really interesting analysis and something that helpful for us all to get an understanding of. Questions, Councillor McKay?
It's not a hidden sand question, but I'm just wondering how much being thrown into climate change and that most of its assumptions. We do know that it's getting hotter. We do know there's erosion on the foreshore. We do know that after a dry spell is a flood. And considering our fiscal policy, how much are we actually throwing it on assumption rather than getting on with the job?
I don't have a dollar value immediately available for you. If it gives you any comfort, I would say we're putting a lot less into it than any other territorial authorities and an awful lot less than any of the regional authorities. We have one advisor dedicated to climate change, and our comparable progress would be regarded as slow compared to other districts. We do have certain aspects that we are expected to be able to report on, and we're working towards that. And we're very conscious of the view around climate change within Waitaki, and we're I would say we're probably doing our bare minimum.
One of the challenges we've got is the being split between the 2 regions and having 2 different sets of plans, basically, for different parts of it. And so we continue to make sure that we're lobbying to have the same standard across the whole district, rather than be subject to whatever whims the particular regions might choose to put on their plans. So that's it's just an ongoing issue. Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, I have 3 questions. Roger, the first one is, you mentioned Project Reclaim and the fact that we may face liability of about 3.5 million, but it may be refunded, but we'll have to pay it first and so on. I was under the impression that that had been resolved and that MFE had said we wouldn't have to pay it. So is it still up in the air or not? That's my first question. The second, I might just, with your permission, Mayor Cooch, I might ask them one at a time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. I think the report is reasonably accurate. With the situation we are in is that we've submitted the levy waiver application. The legislation has been passed to allow that
be considered. However, MFE don't have their internal processes in place. They are required under law to invoice waste levy as it's reported. We're required to report it. And so the situation is that we've reported it, they've invoiced it, but they have agreed to put the invoice in dispute until they've resolved their internal processes and the application has been considered. And officers from both MFE and ourselves are optimistic that the waiver will be granted, but they've had to invoice and it's in dispute, so we don't pay it.
Just a couple of supplementary questions that I'd like to ask. One was there was a concern whether they would charge interest on the disputed invoice, and then whether we would was something they couldn't waive. So has that been sorted? The other was we made an application to help cover some of the main costs of, I think, the beach road removals. Did that go through MFE?
With regards to the interest on the disputed invoice, that question hasn't been resolved, but it doesn't come up until a significant period of time after the invoice has been in dispute. And if the invoice dispute is found to be in our favour, then it becomes a non-question. In terms of the funding for support to remediate the landfill sites, that was unsuccessful in that we didn't meet the appropriate criteria at the stage the project was at.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hopkins, your second one.
Yeah, my second question, Roger, you mentioned, this was not in the report, but you mentioned when speaking to us about MFE extending a funding bond or something of the sort. Now, my understanding is that the current government is a lot softer on the obligation, the compulsory introduction of these curbside schemes. What is the MFE position, and what is this funding bond? This is totally new to me. I haven't heard mention of this before. What are its implications? Are MFE still likely to impose this on us whether we want it or not?
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins, to the chair. Maybe I used some different terminology. So you may recall when we were discussing the curbside options business case, there was initially a level of, there was a time bound in it in relation to the 50-50 funding by MFE. And that we had to have the business case completed, I think, from memory, by the end of October. We've gone back to them and said, well, the government is softer on this, so therefore can we have an extension to the time frame? They've agreed to March 2025 to extend that funding loan arrangement, which allows us more time to take you through that piece of work and for you to make your decision as to whether we implement it or not. Interestingly enough, the Prime Minister did refer to roads, water and rubbish as our core activities.
And we're doing very well in all three spaces at the moment. But my third question, I'm just puzzled about the possible or evident selectivity with regard to the consultation regarding the climate change roadmap. It says that we are consultation with iwi has commenced. Where's the scientific evidence that climate change selectively affects people on the basis of their ethnicity?
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. I would not at this stage be able to give you any evidence that ethnicity and climate change are directly linked. But the absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So nothing else for Roger. Then we'll go through to the economic development update on page 43. And from Mel Jones and Rebecca Finlay and Cindy Christensen.
So good to be here again. Shall we take the report as read and open for any questions?
Okay, so straight to questions.
And I'm joined, as the Mayor has noted, with Rebecca and Cindy. We can talk to some of these initiatives.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, again, I've got 4 or 5 questions, but if I can ask them one at a time. Just curious if you can give us a bit more information about the effectiveness of the revitalisation of Central Oamaru. You say there's been 39 applications, 12 successful, 5 business startups, and one is negotiating with the property owner for a long-term lease. Is there clear evidence that there's a relationship between the temporary use of these spaces and a genuine longer-term commercial enthusiasm for it or for them?
Good question.
In that particular instance, yes, she was in the pop-up space and was communicating with the property owner to negotiate a longer-term lease outside of the pop-up program.
If I can add a little bit more background, I think one of the key purposes for the ROPO program is to showcase vacant spaces so we can get long-term commercial tenants. That is a very challenging and aspirational goal. I think what we're seeing from the program so far is that there are a number of other social benefits that are coming out. People feeling safer because the windows are lit up at night and there's things to see. We're seeing new people coming into the district. So we've had people in from Palmerston in the last month to say, hey, we would like to showcase what we can do back in Palmerston. So we're getting new businesses coming in. And it's also good to see in the next month now, this month, statement trees coming in. So businesses who are sitting out slightly outside of the district coming into town and saying, hey, we can see an opportunity here to drive some more profile for our businesses. One of the things that we will be looking at, because this is a 6-month pilot, is to fully evaluate the program, and we do want to look at the commercial economic benefits of it. That is one of the metrics that we're going to be exploring. We can't be too specific, but there definitely we're seeing financial gain both to the building owners, but also to the people who are in those spaces because they're running workshops and there's monetary gain for that. So we will be looking at that as part of the overall review of the program.
Councillor McCone.
Yeah, look, I've got 2 or 3. So is there a reason why Oamaru North is having a plan similar to the centre of Oamaru? Is the first question. And secondly, neat places to visit. Is that under the Tourism Waitaki umbrella or is that under a different section?
I'll answer the second question first. So the Neat Places campaign, that is being run through council with support of Tourism Waitaki, but it's being run through the development team with some funds that have come in, which are allocated to the visitor economy as part of this year's annual plan. So that campaign is underway and we're looking to get it up and running for this summer season by December. So that's that one. And in terms of Oamaru North, if you recall, there was a huge, a significant road project that we've got government funding for. That was put on hold. What we've seen is there's been a lot of change up in the North End over the last decade or so. So we're really keen to look at a very straightforward master plan for Oamaru North to make sure that we're thinking about how we can best ensure spaces and movement of people around that North End. So there's a number of opportunities that Cindy's already identified, and we'll be working with the operational steering group to flesh out exactly what the outcomes are that we want from that project. But that will be running in parallel with the master plan that's running currently.
I think there's been a North Oamaru project, but looking at improving streetscape and so forth out there for a number of years, and they're long-term plan. So there's no doubt will feed into that part of the project as well. Councillor Hopkins, you had.
Yes, I did. Thank you. On page 56, the super
Super Soup Sipper campaign, the description of it appears to be a bit ambiguous or ambivalent. It says that the passport uptake was low, number of soups might have been too high. However, there was a positive response in the sense that 68% of people who took part said it has a positive impact. So is that intended to be continued? And will it change at all, and how? And there's also a reference there to there being interest from the sector to investigate other types of promotion to further increase Waitaki as a food destination. Are we allowed to know what they might be?
I have not had a chance yet to set up a collective meeting with those participants, which we will do. Just trying to figure out the best approach to do that, whether it's online and what time of day. Because it is quite difficult for hospitality operators to come together. Yes, throughout the promotion, even prior to, there was interest from people who didn't participate in the soup, thought that there could be other ideas that they'd like to discuss. Part of that discussion would be about how it would be funded and rolled out and what it would lead to. Again, those things have not yet been determined. And as far as the passport, yes, we did learn that the eligibility was considered too high, but it did not stop people from coming out and enjoying the soups and supporting their local.
Thank you.
And maybe just to add to that, I think what the soup campaigns, remember this is 2 years it's been running now. It's been very positive and had great response from businesses. Very appreciative that we're doing something during a really quiet winter season. And of course, we know that businesses are all finding it tough this year. I think what was very reassuring this year is we've had other businesses reaching out saying, hey, this is cool. We'd like it to see it going bigger. So that's the work that we need to be doing in the next couple of months to really evaluate what we've done and then say, actually, is there an opportunity here to create a winter food related event that can bring people into the district and bring visitors into the district year after year? Because we don't have anything during that June-July period. It's pretty quiet. So, or July period. So, and we know events work in Oamaru and they bring people in. So I think there's a bigger and quite interesting opportunity, and that's what we'll be working through in the next couple of months, getting some new businesses around the table to go, well, how do we take this to the next level?
Councillor Kells.
Thank you. I guess with not my councillor hat on, I was one of the participants in this, and we had. I was very surprised how many people travelled an hour up the valley to come and try the soup. So I was impressed with that. I have no problem. While I was away at LGNZ, we went and visited Kapiti and tasted Kapiti, and I was really heartened that they have actually got a similar thing, but they've used a cluster of people from the hospitality industry to drive some of these events themselves. And I really see this as an opportunity to perhaps see that cluster and get some people together. Notoriously, as an industry, we don't work particularly well together in that space, but this could actually be a really cool catalyst to bring a cluster together to help in that food and beverage space. So, yeah, look, I'd really encourage you to look at that bigger thing as you are. I think it would be a really cool idea.
Councillor McCone.
Right, page 59 and the commentary on the Whitestone Geopark. So 2 or 3 questions coming out of that. Where are we at as a council, and you know, how far are we down the track to actually, I suppose, advertise and promote it? And there's a couple of, I see the Vanished World Centre is under refurbishment. So I presume that's at Duntroon. That's not here. And the team's preparing for visits from the University of Canterbury. Is that the UK? It says return tourism class. What does that mean?
Just a quick comment. Duntroon is here. Yeah, we are Waitaki. Mel.
Yeah, so the Geopark, I mean, with my trustee hat on, the Geopark, Vanished World is now under the auspices of the Geopark. And there's been a recognition in the last few years that we really need to be renovating the Vanished World Fossil Discovery Centre. The good news is there are final application in with lotteries to get around 300,000, which will give us nearly $500,000 to actually do a cracking job there. And given that was the birthplace of the Geopark, it was where Otago University came first to discover all the fossils that led to the geopark. It seems very appropriate. So that will stay there, and it will become a draw card to get more people going up the valley. In terms of where the geopark team are now, I know they're looking to come and do a briefing to council in October, November time. So it'll be a fuller update then. At the moment, they're really spending their time networking, getting out and talking and building awareness and getting advocacy for the geopark. And what we are seeing, which is very cool, is geoparks are really quite well established in Asian markets, particularly in China and Japan. So we're seeing now, and that's what's mentioned in the commentary, the Chinese market saying, hey, we want to come and visit your geopark. So that's that. And the Canterbury one, that's the educational, that's the geology side of things coming in again for an educational visit. So the nice thing with the geopark is it talks to education, but it also talks to visitor economy.
Just as a supplementary to that, so the building at Duntroon, we have a lease on it. Is there an opportunity we're going to spend that money to actually have an option to buy? Would be the question.
Not able to answer that at this moment, but I will make a note of it. Yeah, because I think isn't it leased from Errol Wills? Yeah. It's not sure.
It's good to note in that report about the comment about Miles Anderson, REP, visiting. He's spoken since then to us about his how impressed he was with geopark as a concept and as an asset. I think it is something that we really need to be taking to the government and saying this is a good investment. This is something that the regional infrastructure fund could be used for to provide something very special that's going to help visitor numbers, but also just help our own people understand our district even that much more. So something to we've really got to leverage off. We've really got to take up any opportunity that Miles has to speak to ministers and so on. So it's some good positive stuff happening there. Also, I've been a wee bit part of a couple of visits looking at getting other sponsorship and funding externally for the geopark. So we'll keep supporting them in whatever way I can with those things. We've got Councillor Deputy Mayor Haley, and then we'll go to Councillor Hopkins after that.
Thank you, through the chair. Just looking at page 58, really supportive of the business innovation and growth in the schools, building career development. We had New Zealand Media Design visit Oamaru a couple of weeks ago and ran an info session, so they're quite interested in helping to support this space. So I'm just indicating that there are other partners, potential strategic relationships that we could continue to build to bring opportunities for our community. So well done with that, and look forward to the event. I think that's next week.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, one simple question and one slightly more complicated. When might the tech wreck happen? And on page 60 with the Infometrics quarterly report, have we done, the GDP is down slightly more than the national average, the consumer spend significantly up, and our tourism sector has done spectacularly well relative to the national average. What analysis has been done to identify why that has happened, and how can we capitalise on information that's been gained from the analysis?
The tech wrecks on the 19th of September.
And good.
You're allowed to come.
Are you in tech? And are you an educator? If so, you're welcome.
I know young people who are in tech for me.
Well, they can come.
Thanks. I think a good question on the analysis of the data. I have to say I haven't done a deep dive. My observations would be we're seeing a lot of independent travellers here. We're seeing a lot of Asian independent travellers here. Certainly when you look at tourism data, the growth isn't coming from New Zealanders. The growth is coming from international. And so I think that's very reassuring, because if you'll recall in the economic development strategy, tourism was only 3% of the GDP. So we want to grow it, and that's one of the reasons that the geopark is here to help us do that. We do need to have a bit more of a deep dive. I haven't done that, and I don't know if tourism or Taki have done that yet either. One reassuring thing is, I think, is the guest nights. Our guest nights are 3 times higher than the New Zealand average year on year, which is it's really encouraging. It is being picked up in the national news how well Waitaki and Otago have done. So so good to point out. It's another reason, to be honest, I wanted to get the Neat Places campaign up and running again this year, because we've got a lot of new cool businesses in town and deserve a bit of profiling.
Thank you, Councillor McCain.
I'll just make a commentary really on the bottom of page 60 is house sales. What isn't said there is that the housing price in Oamaru is actually cheaper than the national average across the South Island, and that is why we're getting an influx of higher sales. There's significant pressure from outside of people wanting to come here, and mainly in the retirement age. So looking forward and where we're going to be as far as what we're going to do further in the next 10 years, the house prices got to catch up, and when it does, then we'll see it slow down. But at the minute, we're bringing that age population base further and further into the system.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you very much for the update and appreciate what you're doing. Next, we've got the communications update, and John Palathorpe here to speak to that. So, welcome, John. Is there anything you want to do as an intro?
There's a couple of little updates that we can have here. One is that the representation review ended up with 11, which I believe councillors are dealing with later. The CBD master plan had 23 submissions at close, and in the next 3 months, the Health Futures project is going to be getting off the ground within the next week to 10 days. And we're working with Councillor Black and the Chief Exec on making sure that we kind of go out in partnership with Health New Zealand. Although you'll be happy to know that Health New Zealand are doing an awful lot of the heavy lifting on this one. So they're doing more booking, they're sorting out venues and things, and we'll kind of move from there and work with them rather than leading them around the district.
That's good to hear. Thank you. All right, questions? You've communicated everything too well. Oh, here's one. Councillor Hopkins.
Sorry, it's nice to know we're making national news and positively as well, turning Waitaki back into a thriving hub and so on. The 2 appearances on the panel RNZ show in the afternoon, what were they about? I'm just curious. I confess I don't listen, but I should.
One of them was the mayor talking about seagulls one afternoon.
Could be right.
What? It was when we had the good news about the seagull reduction in the CBD. We put a press release out about it. It got covered in the Timaru Herald. Almost all of these come from the Timaru Herald covers our story. It goes onto the Stuff homepage. Someone at Radio New Zealand is looking for content, and then we get a phone call. They have a very nice journalist up in Timaru who has realised that everyone in Dunedin has stopped paying attention to North Otago. So he is now covering our stories, and that gets us better media coverage. We're developing a really nice relationship with him to make sure that we continue to do that. I believe the other one was also to do with the CBD in some way. I think it might have had to do with Revitalise Our Places or with Cindy Christensen.
Just a tragedy that with radio listening apparently going up nationwide in the last year, Radio New Zealand's audience is actually reducing. So fewer people would have heard about our wonderful elimination of seagulls, etc.
Right. Any other questions for John? No. Okay, well, thanks very much, John. I know you've been working extra hard with Sonia away, but thank you for your good work as well. All right, that brings us on to Grants and Awards Subcommittee, and Lisa, you speak to that one. Thank you.
No problem. Obviously, this is something that Carol puts together, but she's in just making her way home from Scotland at the moment. So back to work tomorrow. So this is our quarterly report from April through to June, looking at two funds in particular, the Rural Travel and the Heritage Fund. We've given out the majority of the fund in Rural Travel, although there was $93,000 worth of applications. We had 23,000, nearly 24,000 in the fund and gave out 23.5. And the Heritage Fund had 106,000 in the fund, received $99,000 worth of applications and gave out just over 81,000. And then towards the end of the report is some of the good news stories from the previous successful applicants with, in this case, Waitaki Boys High School with their composting facility, Pottery on Tyne with some lighting rewiring, and Wayland Lodge Trust with some re-roofing. And I guess any questions on that, and the chair of these committees might be a better place to speak to those.
Yeah, just ask Councillor Ryan, do you want to add anything? Obviously, we had Donald Mallee Malcolm Trust meeting yesterday, highly oversubscribed. Is that pretty much the same happening with all of the funds? And, you know, are you, as chair, you're seeing more requests coming through over this last period of time?
Yes, I think most of our funds are heavily oversubscribed. I think, yeah, this rural travel fund one is an example of that, with 93,000 of applications with much less than that to give away. And I guess, yeah, highlights the challenges, especially with that one with travel costs for teacher sporting events and a lot outside the district as well. So bring on the Network Waitaki Event Centre so we can host more stuff locally. But no, they are oversubscribed, but it's always great to read about some of the fantastic projects that our community groups, sports clubs are doing in our district. And we've also got the Biodiversity Fund next week as well.
Great, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Haley.
It's really good to read, and I'm just looking at page, I think it's 68, just around the fund that was given to Waitaki Girls Badminton. The team travelled to Wellington to the Nationals over the weekend. They got second in the country. So it just kind of goes to show, you know, that these grants help support community outcomes, community wellbeing, and also opportunities for our youth in the district. So well done. A little bit goes a long way.
It certainly helps with community morale too, I think, and pride in our own community. So really good. Councillor, okay, yep.
I was just wondering, across all the grants and everything we do, how much of it is rate funded and how much is sourced from outside the system as central government?
The creative communities comes from the government. The supports travel grants is from the government. The community grants generally are funded through the dividend from Whitestone Contracting. The bit that's rate funded, I believe, and Roger might correct me on this, is I think the Heritage Fund and the Biodiversity Fund. That'd be correct.
The Biodiversity Fund does get some top ups from fines. Yeah.
Okay, right. So not much directly from rates. Obviously, it's ratepayer money with the Whitestone dividend. We see it as a really important way to support our community, and so many good things that so many community groups do. So feel that it's a way for us to be putting back something without having to take the money off people first. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, apologies if this seems as though I'm relitigating something. Obviously that can't be done. The grants have been made. I'm just curious, however, under the Heritage Fund application, I don't think I was on the committee in the June hearings or session. On what basis was the $10,593.50 the replacement of a main switchboard and upgraded power metering provided to the Whitestone Civic Trust on heritage grounds? I would have thought that's an operational matter that could and should have been paid for by them as a landlord. Now, I see Councillor Holding nodding, and I'm genuinely a bit puzzled as to how that actually managed to pass the heritage test.
I think my recollection of supported heritage in that it made an old building usable again and actually created a higher income that is helping to preserve those buildings. So it's, it's like putting a roof on. It's not going to be an old roof that you're going to put on, but it's going to protect the building overall. So it does fit within the criteria, and it is an important aspect of the readaptive use of some of those old buildings.
So what was the building, just out of curiosity?
Can't recall, but we can get that detail to you. Councillor McKay?
So I see going on a bit, but lots of the Heritage Fund, is there a set of rules that applies to what that money has been given? Where I'm coming from, there are individual ratepayers who are receiving rate funded money as opposed to the likes of the Civic Trust and Wayland Lodge. Is there a set of rules of where those grants can go to?
There is criteria. Again, you'll be able to find that on the website. It's nowhere else, but if you want that shared, I'm sure someone can get that shared with you. Any other questions? Just having a quick look at the that which building it was the Civic Trust had there, but it's I can find it straight away. Is there any? There's no other questions. We'll take that then. So that completes the list of updates, and we've managed to do it with 8 minutes to spare. So thank you very much. And we'll sign off from this live stream and have an early morning tea.